The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. So we're just going to do our usual and give it another 60 seconds or so just to let some stragglers get on. Thanks for everyone that's got hopped on early. And yeah, we'll be picking up in another 60 seconds. Chat to you then. Right. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the last webinar in our series, HR in the Cloud. So my name's Nick Gordon. I'm the account manager at Silversoft. As usual, the session will be recorded and a copy of the recording will be made available to you afterwards. Please note that you will all be on mute throughout the session, but you can ask questions at any time, and we do encourage you to do this by using the question tab on your GoToWebinar navigation pane. Just type it in there, press send to us, and we'll try and answer that if there's time at the end of the session. And if not, then we'll contact you directly with answers to any questions you may have. Right, so today, Kathryn Gordon, our sales manager for the Talent Management Solutions, is she's going to talk about what data is actually required to make talent management successful. So Kathryn's going to take us through what exactly talent management is, how it's different to the typical HRIS type systems that we use today. And then for us to truly execute talent management internally, we need to make sure that we've got the right pieces of data, and she's going to unpack exactly what those pieces are. So before putting it all together and showing you how a talent management system inputs that data and uses it to manage processes and people, she'll give us a view of some actual sites that we can reference to help assist with putting that data together and give us some points to consider. She's going to take us through critical data requirements, the data construct, obtaining data, which I just chatted about. She's actually going to show you some areas where you can go and build your own missing data, like competency and skill libraries, if you're a bit lean on that. And then yeah, she's going to go straight into a live system and show you exactly what that data, what should be in there, and how it all comes together. And then, as we mentioned, question session at the end. So over to you, Kathryn.
Thank you, Nick, and good morning, everyone. It's been quite an enlightening series, and it's part of me is quite sad that it's coming to an end, but I think we've all learned quite a lot, specifically me. So thank you very much for all the questions that came through. It's definitely food for thought. And as Nick mentioned, what we're going to do today is we're really going to focus on all the data components required for talent management. So many of us are probably sitting with talent management strategies. Some of us are trying to put a lot of that into our HRIS type systems. Maybe we've actually invested in some point solutions. Maybe we're at the brink of knowing what's the next step that we need to do. So I thought, let's just really unpack, make sure we're sort of all on the same page, because lately what's happened is there's this new stream of technology that's come to the forefront, which is known as sort of talent management. And what I'd like to do is just unpack how this is different to your HR information systems. Do you need to get a talent management system as well as an HRIS? Does some of our HRIS have talent management components in it, that type of concept? So first of all, let's just unpack and look what an HR, well, a human resource information system has. And most companies and most of us have got this sort of type of system, which is more of a record keeping in place, whether it was something we developed in-house or it was purchased from a commercial vendor. These solutions support the entry, tracking, and management of employee information that is required. It also helps us track the benefits and upload benefits. It keeps a track of all our employees' demographics and their compensation, their absence, their leave management, time and attendance for those of us that are in professional services. It houses the company structure, what training is required, and very importantly, it's where we generate a lot of our compliance reporting. And while each of these, and there's a lot of them on the market, provides different capabilities, what I'm finding is most of them lack the critical functionality that's needed to fully support our talent management processes. So for me, HRIS, or a Human Resource Information System, is an HR tool. It's designed for us as HR, and it has very powerful data capturing and document management functionality. But it is limited on, or if it actually has any functionality, with managing the processes of talent management. So, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, employees will continue to strive for what's at the top of the pyramid, the self-actualization. By providing resources that support employees, we're actually encouraging them to realize their full potential, to attain that self-actualization. By doing this, it will help the business to grow and reach its full potential. So we all know that motivated employees typically create a following among the local workforce pool, pulling new employees up, getting them motivated, adding the loyalty of the existing team. The opposite also happens. So if you have a demotivated team, it's sort of, you can just walk into the room and you can just feel, oh, here we go. Motivated team has the opposite effect. So if we focus on resources for that individual talent and encouraging those employees to reach that full potential, to reach that self-actualization, then the current workforce creates the economic growth and spurs future success. So now if you look at your current situation, what you're probably finding is you've got that HR information system sitting, and all those things that you're seeing in blue on the screen in front of you, recruiting, succession, goal, performance, those are things we probably do have in place, but they are either manually done, or it's something that we've done on Excel, or we've got a point solution there. We don't really, many of us are in a situation where we've got those processes automated, where we've got a central hub or a central system in which we can sort of store what we've done, how we've done it, configure the processes, realign and report on it. And that is where your talent management system kicks in. So that in essence is what a talent management system does. It automates the process needed to engage and motivate your employees. So by keeping a record of the employee is good for us in HR for compliance reporting, but it's not going to help them reach their self-actualization. And now there's this massive drive, this massive push for talent retention, for motivation, for loyalty. And that is why companies are now reaching out and saying, well, now we have to focus on talent management. And we need to get systems in place, because talent management is more for the employees and the managers, which means they need a toolkit. It's not necessarily an HR system for them. It's a different type of component. And looking at how to implement these talent management systems, I mean, even from deciding what to automate and what to automate first, you do recruitment, performance, compensation, learning, succession. What do you look at? Can your current HR system sort of be bolstered to include that? And it can be quite a complex undertaking that requires a lot of planning, a lot of change management to make sure that the right solution is in place, that the right decision's been taken place, successful implementation, and obviously the most important thing is widespread adoption within the business. So I thought what I'd do this morning is just spend a few, because I know we're probably in all different stages, but just to give you a few tips in what we need to do, what we need to consider when wanting to go a more systematic route in executing our talent management strategy. So the first few things that I want us to consider are just questions that you can answer yourself. And the first one is, do you have the right data to support the talent management strategy you're wanting to put in place? And then, are your processes for talent management well defined? So do you have a set recruitment process? Do you have a set and formalized performance process? Is there a set process for succession planning? Have you thought of how you're going to handle the career path and career development training? Are all those processes in line and accepted and endorsed by the business? And then, if they are, and you're wanting to go systematic, what processes should you automate first? So many of our clients, because the system that we work with is modular, they tend to do recruitment and performance first. Most of them actually do recruitment because it doesn't really impact and it doesn't require that much change management for the existing employees within the organization. And it's a quick win. It's an immediate way to eliminate paperwork. Then performance, because that's run at set cycles. So it's quite easy to schedule the go live at a certain time so that the new performance review can happen on an electronic platform. And then bolted onto that, they add on learning. So if you're requiring development in a particular area, hey, here's a whole course catalog. And then once we got you properly sorted in your job and you're doing well, remember we spoke about a career path, and then they open up that component. So they really grow. It's very rare. We do have some clients that have gone with the full shebang all at once because they've had everything sorted. But sometimes I still personally believe, just from a resource and a capacity perspective for us internally, make it almost a 2-3 year project, gradually get there. And then when you are wanting to tackle the project, who are the right people to involve in this talent management automation initiative? What we always advise is there's always that key manager, the key director that really is passionate about people. Get them involved. Don't just allow it and keep it within the HR function, because we need to get certain key people in the organization that really believe in people. We need them involved in the project. They may not have to do too much, but if they endorse it and they talk about it, that will ripple through to the organization and allows us to be able to have much quicker user adoption that goes up. And what I want to focus today in the next few minutes is that top point is, do we have the right data to support talent management? Because when we are in implementation, it's often when I talk about a job profile and everyone says, yes, I've got a job profile. And then we get into the detail and we realize we've only got half of it. So what I perceive as a job profile and what you perceive as a job profile could be two completely different things. So I thought, let's just be clear, because any talent management system is this where you want to go, regardless who the vendor is, they will most likely all require the same information. And usually when I talk about it, we get stuck in implementation or HR wants to do it. This is what they look like. It's a case of, I don't actually know where to start. I started off here and I got these processes, and then I thought, well, if I don't have this in place, then I've got to have this. And if that doesn't take place, this. And then I got Post-its everywhere, and eventually it becomes such a big project that I actually don't know where to begin. And I have found in my experience that it's a case of, well, I'm just going to deal with what I have. It's too big a deal. We'll get to it. We got to put a task force together, and then it gets pushed out and pushed out. And sometimes we're just too nervous of starting because we don't know where to start. So there's just 3 quotes that I actually want to share with you just to really kick us into action. Is one, as much as you put into it is as much you're going to get out of it. Another classic one is, what you put up with is what you will end up with. So if we are putting up with sub-mediocre job profiles from our managers, that's what's going to be driving our succession planning and our career development. It's not going to be good enough. And then my favorite of favorite is, don't be upset by the result you did get with the work that you didn't do. So it's very important, and this is what we were trained for. We were trained to put skills and competency frameworks together to really create comprehensive job profiles. We're not trained to data upload onto a system. We're there to make sure that the data look at the bigger picture and make sure that everything fits together. So I thought, let's just go back to basics. So what is the data that we do really require? And for talent management specifically, there are 3 key areas. The first one is the employee profile. And I'll share with you exactly what I'm referring to employee profiles. It's not just position detail and the demographics. There is more to it. Then we look at the job profile. What are the areas that we need to put into a job profile? And then very importantly, competencies and skills. This is probably the most crucial missing piece of the puzzle. It's the one that we have to have. It's the one where we spend thousands of rand outsourcing it to third party. And often the information that they send back to us, A, a system can't use, or B, it's way too complicated. So I want to spend a little bit of time on those competencies and skills. So the first thing is the employee profile. So for us, employee profile, it's important to keep a record of, yes, their particulars, but also history of their achievements, of process acknowledgements throughout the business. Because remember, when we are looking at someone for succession planning, because this is a part of our talent management strategy, we want to look at the whole history of the individual, not just their personal particulars. So in an employee profile, you need to have the contact and the personal information. You need to understand their position info, and then you need to have the history, which is what we call the talent component. So under contact and personal information, we all have this. The name, the employee's ID, in other words, the actual identification within the company, their address, their date of birth, their phone, their email, if you're South African, their ID, their unique identifier, and their diversity, which is important for compliance reporting. Position info is also very important. Where do they fit into the org structure? Where is their position located? What was their hire date? And that's not the hire date into the current job role, but the day that they joined the organization. What is their status? Who is their manager? If you work with HR business partners, who is the HR business partner? What is their actual job title? And in many sort of professional services firms where they work in project teams, not necessarily linked to a particular department, who is the team that they're part of? And then we look at the talent profile. So the talent profile is where these talent management systems kick in. So all your HR information systems most likely have contact and personal information and position information. But if I click on a person's name, can you see what their ultimate career goal is and what they're doing to get there? Can you pull up a gap analysis between their competency level, their skill level? Can you see the job history, how they've moved through the organization? Can you see if there are any mentoring relationships or if they've been, they're prepared to be a mentor? Can you see if they are on any projects at the moment? Are they participating in succession plans? Do they have a successor for their role? Training and development, and obviously the qualification. So the idea is when you look at a person, you look at the employee, all this information you can easily access. Because ask yourself this, if you knew all the answers to what you're seeing on the screen, would you not be in a better position to know if this person was suitable for a key position? Would you not be able to know if this person is engaged? Would you not be able to understand if this person was motivated or demotivated? Because that is the information that we're needing that will support the talent management strategy. If I only had contact, personal, and position information, and you sort of hid this last column of talent profile, would you know if this person would go resign tomorrow or if they're fully loyal and engaged? That's the difference. Then we look at the job profile. The job profile is also one that is very, very important. And for us, what a job profile should contain, it's what is important and what is necessary for your key processes. So a job profile will drive the job ad of recruitment. It will drive the skills and competencies required in performance. It will drive training that's required. And remember that this job profile can be built over time. It doesn't have to have all the information at once. If you're just wanting to automate recruitment, just make sure that it's got a really good job ad and it's located to the location. If you're wanting to automate performance, then make sure that it's also got skills and competencies associated to it. If you're wanting to drive learning, make sure that there's training required. So you can actually grow with how you start automating your talent management strategy. And most importantly, this job profile, regardless of how we grow with it, it has to be used to describe the role of an employee with that job title. So what do we need in a job profile? For us, it's actually divided now into 5 areas. So the first one is, where does this job fit into the organization? The second one is advancement. Is this a key position? The second one is recruitment. What information needs to be in the job profile to guide a recruitment process? The same as performance. What information must be in the job profile to guide the performance expectations of the job? And learning. What is it that this individual has to learn when they join in this role? Because I'm obviously going to have to be ramped up, go on a training program. So for us, the organization needs to have the job title. It needs to have a job code. Most systems also work with a position code. We need to associate it to where in the organization it fits, so which company, because we might have multiple companies, multiple levels, which division. Also associate it to a job family if you can, because this helps with reporting purposes. So all the jobs on a management level, I want to be able to pull certain analytics from. The job classification, is this a permanent job? Is it a contract job? Is it a temporary job? Where is it? And then look also at the job role. So is this a contributing role? Is this an individual role? And the reason you can sort of have all those different areas is because it really helps us to refine the reporting that we need later. For advancement, so that is looking at, is this a key position or not? It also looks at the job grade, which is important from a promotional perspective. And then minimal job duration is guiding the career pathing. So if I need to be in this job for at least 6 months, it means it's setting the expectation. So if I want to be an executive PA and I had the minimum job duration as 12 months, I know that once I go into that position, I have to be there at least for a year in order to gain the necessary skills and competencies. So it's just a guideline, but it's there to establish a timeline for a career path and to manage the expectations of the employee. The job profile also needs to have recruitment. So we need to have a job description. And for most of our clients that use to sort of talent management, the job description is the more funky, sexy job ad, short, punchy. This is what it needs to do. And the job requirements is then the full job spec. Because when you advertise, you don't want to advertise the entire job spec. You just want to advertise the summary of what it needs to have. And what we also do is we provide an alternative job title, because sometimes the inherent job title that you have on your org structure, if we had to advertise that, it might attract the wrong type of people. It's classic in government where they talk about grade A secretaries and grade 3 secretaries, and we don't know that that actually equates to an executive PA or to a receptionist. It also requires education. What is the education level, the minimum education level you require? What is the job category? So is it sales? Is it management? Is it finance? What is the job type? Once again, we're looking at, is this permanent? Is this temporary? Where is this job located? Is there a cost center? So you might want to tally up with all the recruitment spend for a particular area. What is the screening criteria? So when this job is advertised and people apply, what's the minimum criteria that they require? And then, are there any background checks required? Do we need a credit check, criminal check? All of that we can actually define in the job profile, so that when we automate these processes, the system knows, hang on, this job requires this screening, requires this background check, and it puts it into place for us. The fourth element on a job profile is performance. So this is where we actually need to have the level and the proficiency levels of the competencies that are required in this job and the skills required in this job. And if you can, this is always great, is to have the level of competencies that you would have gained when you left this job, and the same with the skills. Now, where this becomes valuable is if I get promoted from one job to the next, whatever skills and competencies I've gained by being exposed and doing this particular job well, the system will then take it with me to the next job. So my skills and competency profile grows without me having to input that information. And then the last component that we have on the job profile is the learning. So what training is required, and do we terms in like a new hire orientation curriculum that's comprised of courses and classes? What is the level? What is the grade that we need? We can define all of that. Obviously, more importantly, once we've automated learning into the job profile. So if you're doing it a modular route, for example, and you just wanted to go recruitment, all you would need to have in your job profile is the first column and the third column. If you wanted performance as well, then we would add that column. If you wanted advancement and development, add that column. And so you grow your job profile. But what's important is that in your job profile, you must cater for all of these within a system, because otherwise it will not be able to support your talent management going forward. So that's employees and that's jobs. Then we come to competencies and skills. And having this is important to a healthy workforce. Being able to grow these attributes internally and support them is vital. So it's not only important to know what our skills and competencies are of our individuals, it's also important for us to know that if they don't have it, do we have the necessary initiatives, i.e. the training courses, to bridge the gap for them? So those skills gaps and competency gaps become quite important. And before I go and give some tips on what we should have, I thought, let me just compare what I believe a skill is and what I believe a competency is. Because this really will form the foundation and have an accurate execution of a talent management strategy, of a talent management system, because it relies on the solid foundation. If your competencies and skills are too vague, if your competency and skills are wrong, think about it. I'm comparing a competency that's decision making between a receptionist and an MD, and they're both going to look as if the receptionist can take the MD role because they've both got decision making. It is really important that it's this foundation that we get right more than anything else. And I often find when I go into clients that there's a debate between what a skill is and what a competency is. So for me, a skill it gives us the what. It defines specific learned activities, and they range widely in terms of complexity, like mopping the floor and performing brain surgery, both can be classified as skills. Knowing which skills a person possesses helps us determine whether their training and experience has prepared them for a specific type of workplace activity. In other words, as I said, skills gives us the what. They tell us what types of abilities a person needs to perform at a specific activity or job. They don't give us the how. How does an individual perform a job successfully? How do they behave in the workplace environment to achieve the desired results? That's competencies. And that provides that missing piece of the puzzle by translating the skills into on-the-job behaviors that then demonstrate the ability to perform the job requirements competently. So let's focus on skills first. What do we need in skills? And generally, when we're looking at a skill, you will have a skill category. In this example, it's finance. You could have finance, call center, human resources, technology, computer literacy. Those are all ideas of a skill category. Within that skill category, you then have the actual skills. So for finance, for example, we'll have debt collection, invoicing. For sales, which could be a category, you would have presentation skills, cold calling, closing the deal, negotiating. Those are all skills that you'll be able to assess. And then those skills need to be defined by 3 areas. The one is the level of skill. And generally, clients here use it's a basic level, intermediate level, excellent level, advanced level. How long have you used it for? Generally, this is in years. So I've used it for 2 years, 2 to 4 years, 4 to 6 years, 6 to 8 years. And then recency, I'm currently using it. I used it a year ago. I used it a year to 2 years ago. I used it 3 to 4 years ago. And the reason why we have this is it just helps define and be specific with the job role. For example, this might be a junior debtors clerk. They need invoicing potentially on a basic level, and they needed to have used it and have experience of at least 2 years. And currently, that it needs to be used because they're doing it, versus, for example, a finance manager. A finance manager needs to have invoicing as an excellent, needs to have used it for 10 years, but it's fine if it was used only 3 or 4 years ago, as long as they've got knowledge of it. And that's where you start differentiating. And when you start doing that skills analysis, it's those levels, usage and recency, that starts differentiate between one job and the next job. Then we've got competency. Now, competencies, as I've said before, are the building blocks that define knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes that differentiate your top performers from your mediocre performers from your poor performers. And they're always defined in terms of observable behaviors that can either be seen, and if they can be seen, they therefore can be measured on the job. And each competency should be described in terms of the proficiency level. So some jobs only require a basic demonstration of competency, while others require more complex levels, very similar to how we set out the skills. For example, decision making, a proficiency level of this competency is required in each job, but not at the same level. A receptionist needs decision making, so does an MD, but a receptionist needs it on basic, MD needs it on advanced. And what I have found is that competencies give leaders the ability to define in a consistent manner what it means to be successful in the organization. You know, competencies translate, as in this illustration here, your strategic vision and goals into those employee behaviors that then drive competitive advantage and result in the business success. Getting this right is crucial, and a competency framework for me should usually include things like your competency category. So in this case, we've got core values. You might have functional competencies. You might have operational competencies. And then within those competencies, what are the actual competencies? So for us, within Silversoft, we've got a set of core values, two of which happen to be teamwork and authenticity. And then you've got to be able to provide the description of that teamwork. What do you mean when you're saying teamwork? Be very precise, specifically in your current environment. So for us, teamwork means getting things done together, working collaboratively to develop and maintain a productive working relationship based on mutual respect and trust. We have various product lines, and sometimes we're needing the teams from different product lines to help and work together to assist each other. And that's why this one is quite important for us in the teamwork. And then once you've got your competency in your description, you then need to be able to define what the proficiency level is. So here you can go with potentially your standard 5-point scale, 1 being bad, 2 being mediocre, 5 being advanced. Or what I have found some of our clients doing is actually splitting it up into 4 tiers, where you've got beginning, so they need ongoing support, or a proficiency level of it's developing, so they need some support, applying, they're independent, extending, they can support others. So you can really create your own proficiency level that is important for you. It depends on how many levels you have within the organization. A flatter structure requires obviously less levels. More complex a structure, you do require a more complex level that comes through. And what I've noted is when we implement these systems, excuse me, I have found that companies have realized that they haven't really had the data that they've needed, and they have sort of to put together a comprehensive and a concise level of data. they hit some challenges. One of the big one is when they outsource it because they don't have the capacity. They are horrified at the cost to put these frameworks together. I'm actually horrified to see. I've seen some external partners that are fantastic, and I've seen some that are shocking from names that you thought would not be shocking, where they've billed a department 250, 300,000 to do 60 job profiles, and it was all researched on the internet. Or you look at it and you think, but they're all exactly the same. Why, what did you actually do here? And if all the job profiles are the same, how can a system pull up a gap analysis? Because then your gap analysis, although you've got a great system providing you with wonderful functionality, the data is rubbish. You might as well go back to Excel and manipulate it manually yourself, because invariably that's what's going to happen. So what I have found is it's all fine and well to say this is the data that we need, this is how we need it, and we know we need it in a lot more detail than we ordinarily would have. But sometimes we're so busy in our own jobs, we just don't have the capacity to do it. And often we don't have the budgets to go and work on data. So I thought what I would do is I will actually give you some sites. It's a lot of what your external providers do. It's what I've used. It's what we do to help clients as well to actually do your own research. There is a lot of free information that is now on Google. Where it takes our time is actually going through it all to decipher what is right for our business and how do you want to use it. But actual access to information now, it's readily available. So I thought, let me share with you some sites that after this you can actually go onto. So from a job profile, we actually work quite closely with an American site called the ONET Library. The website is www.onetonline.org. And it's a beautiful site because you type in what your job title is, what industry you're in, and it will then give you a template with content of this is the description, these are the knowledge, these are the attributes, this is the skills, this is the competency levels, and you can then tweak it from there. But it provides you with a whole consolidated look of what needs to happen. It doesn't have every single job title, but I would say it's got at least 90 to 95% of them. And this is often what I reference for our existing clients who are battling. It's easier to start with a template and to edit than it is to start from a blank page. And then also with competencies, sometimes we don't know what competencies necessarily pertain to what jobs or what is the norm, what is the average out there that we can tweak. So there's two also very good sites that is available to us, which is competencytoolkit.com and competencylibrary.com. So the competency library just gives you a list of competencies and their descriptions that you can then apply, whereas the competency toolkit actually links it to various jobs. And what I find is many of us already know our jobs. We have some competencies in place. We might just want to add or tweak. One advice that I can give you is don't give too many competencies and skills per job. 5, 6, 8 maximum. The more competencies and skills you have, the more difficult it is to sort of manage and the more irritated the managers actually become. Let's rather hone in on the most crucial competencies and those levels that we require. And the same with skills. So there's a fantastic thing called foodskillslibrary.com. It's also www.foodskillslibrary.com. And it gives you a list of skills, the proficiency levels per job. And it's, as I said, these are just 4 sites that I've used quite a lot. I know there's a lot more sites, but it's where I can get the information and I can start building that library for the company ourselves without having to go and outsource that information. Because if you think about it, these third-party providers haven't lived and breathed the culture. So they might come with more of a generic type setup purely because they themselves are not embedded in the organization. We in HR, working within an organization, are the best position to define these skills, competencies, build out the job profile because we understand what the business needs and where it's going. So with that in mind, what I'm going to do is I want to actually just show you, I see we do have some time available. I want to just show you what it would look like, how a talent management system pulls all of it together. So I'm going to drag the system across here. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so that we can all see it. So the one thing that a talent management system does is it's designed for your employee and your manager. So it's very visual. It is, most of them, in fact, I think all of them are web-based, so it's easy to interact with it on a mobile device, specifically for your employees. That's important. Management, those that travel, it's very important. And for every person that links in, they have their own dashboard, which is important for them because it will highlight, for example, I've logged in as a manager here who's also recruiting at the moment. So I can see actions that I'm needing to do. I can see the 9-box matrix, which compares the person's latest performance score to their potential and plots them. So I know that I've got a bit of a challenge there, but the rest I'm looking pretty healthy. It also allows me to actually do what we call continuous feedback, which is important for performance, where I can actually document and create a session that's actually there. And all of this information I would actually be able to build up myself. And there's even one down here, which is called the competency fit. And this is where I've got all my staff members down here, all 5 of them with their job titles. And what I can do is I can see, well, how far off are they? What is their skill and competency level compared to what I'm requiring in the job? So if I make this a bit bigger so you can see it, what it does is it says everything in red is what the job required it, and there's those proficiency levels. And that's what we would have put in when we did the competencies and skills for the job profile. And this is what the employee brings to the table. So there's a whole lot of additional skills and competencies that they came with from their previous company, that they are on a career path somewhere and they're busy building themselves out. But interestingly enough, we can see that there is a gap. So they've got decision making and a proficiency level of a 2, and we're needing them on a 3. They've got the commanding of skills and a proficiency level of 2, but they're needing to have on a 3. So immediately I can say, but hang on, let me put you on a development plan because you're not performing at your peak because of these 2 areas. I'm not going to worry with trust and change and all the others. It's just these areas. Now, can you imagine if you could put together a management course, pull up an analysis like this between all your managers and what is required from a manager and be able to pick out what it is that they're lacking and then create a course just around what they're lacking? Would we not get more out of that course and we would have more of an impact in the business than if we just put them on a general management course? So information that we're putting together, the system takes and puts it in a position like this where we can actually start really pulling up information that's valuable for us and allow us to drive our initiatives going forward. From a manager's perspective, so if I go, slowly going to scroll up here, I'm going to use one of my little pins. We can take all that employee information that we've put into the system, and a manager can now see a visual org chart. It doesn't have to be a third-party vendor. It can actually be embedded in the system. So I've logged in as this gentleman over here by the name of Mapo, and here are my 5 direct reports. And I can see that's the name. I can see the job title that they're linked to, which is what we put into the system. I can see their hire date, when they actually joined, and I can see their tenure. So the system says, oh, this person joined here, and it's now today's date. This is the tenure. Every day I log into the system, tomorrow I will now have 26 days. 3 years, 7 months, 26 days. It keeps track of all that tenure. How important is that for us in succession planning to be able to pull up the report immediately to know, oh, so this person's been with us for 10 years without having to download all employee information, create an Excel spreadsheet, and off you go. Also, that total talent profile that I was talking about earlier with the employee record, this is where it exists. So that first part of the employee, where are they in the organization? What are their contact details? That's still here. Their diversity information, their date of birth, that is all still here. But what is different now is not only do I have that basic information, which is important, I have a full understanding, a full picture of this employee. I can go and see all their past appraisals, and I could print it. I could view it. I can really see how has performance gone up. For example, here he started on a 4, then he dipped down to a 2, went up to a 5. Sure, okay, I know what happened there. Maybe he had a loss in the family. Maybe he was going through a difficult time. I understand what happened. Maybe he was sick for half the year. But you'll be able to start pulling trends and saying, oh, I see he dips all the time. Why is it that he dips, or he's going down slowly over the last 3 years, so that we can investigate. The same with a career path. Where does he want to be ultimately? And how is he going to get there? And you'll be able to pull a gap analysis between where he is and the ultimate job. Why? Because you have put competencies and skills to every job profile. The employee has competencies and skills. And because you've done that, the system can now easily marry up any person to any job. The same as with succession planning, which we also house down here. The system can now calculate what the risk of loss is, because it can pick up how engaged this individual is, how is their performance, what attendance are they doing what is required in the job profile, are they doing other initiatives, and based upon that, it creates a risk of loss. Training and development. It would be able to pick up all the past development plans, your qualifications, and at any point in time, you can pull up the learning profile and understand exactly what this person has done, even if it's a one-day course linked to the organization while they were there. What power is that when you're looking at this person and everything is there, because we have automated all the processes and all the results are coming into one area. The same as if I wanted to actually look at the job profile. So I would say, oh gosh, what is the national sales manager all about? So here's the description, there's the requirements, here's the job skills with the level requirement, here's the competencies with the level requirement. All of that information is now housed, that we put together within this particular job profile. And that is where all this work that we're putting together, putting in the data, a talent management system can take all that data, automate the processes, and make it user-friendly for this particular individual and the manager and things like that. And also the 9-box matrix I'm finding is really, really important, where it's almost a health diagnostic for the organization. And this 9-box is a useful tool for us in HR, because we can pull it on the entire organization. It doesn't just have to be the direct reports. And in essence, what it says is if you've got people down here, no potential or low potential with low performance, you're going to have to either look at shifting them or finding what you need to do. And we could use this 9-box as an attrition report. So out of the last 5 years, people that voluntarily or involuntarily left, where were they sitting on the 9-box? So if they were all sitting here, fine. We are going to have those people that just don't fit our culture, that we make a mistake recruiting for, not a problem, we did our job. If they were sitting up here, however, where we hired correctly, they had all the potential we needed, but they just never got off the mark. Was it our induction? We lost quite a high percentage there. We hired the right people, but we lost them in the first 6 months. Why? We can find out. We can possibly phone them and see what's going on. If we're losing people up here, then we need to look at the department to say, well, they're performing well and they have got the high potential, but you know what? They're high flyers. And this department, it doesn't move. I'm needing more of the solid citizens. I'm needing more of the experts in place, because otherwise I'm going to have a high staff turnover. And maybe you're okay with that, but this will just alert you to what's actually happening. And then for us, what is powerful is not only putting all the information in and allowing employees and managers to use it and work with it, but it's also important that we can extract the information. So reporting is vital for these types of systems. So, one of the things that you can do is you can pull a gap analysis between an employee and any particular job. So, for example, if I look at, let's take Stephen here. We know he's the national sales manager. I think his surname is Best. Let's say we want to search for him. We can say, yes, that's the one that we're looking. It's that one. We can generate it. And what the system will do is it will actually help us, and it will pull a skills gap analysis. And it will say, numerically, this is what's required, and this is what they've attained, so that there are particular gaps. And if I could, this is immediately where I could actually add it to that individual's development plan. So it doesn't only have to lie with management. It depends on the culture and how your organization sits. Ideally, that's where we need to move to. But sometimes we in HR still have to guide the process, and it's very easily. And we can do the same thing with the skills that works from there. And at the other one that we can do is we can actually then also pull a gap analysis between the jobs. And this is important for us because we need to know what the skill level is within the organization. So you might say, I can find everyone in Silversoft and I want all key positions. Tell me what skills and competencies and what percentage of my employees have got it. So this is where you've got, say, for example, a software engineer. Those are the skills. Those are the competencies required. It tells you the number of employees and the percentage of employees that have it. But scarily, it's telling me that there's 0% that have both the skills and the competencies for that. So should we move in a role, and that's our talent management strategy, to go more web-based, and we've realized, and we want to start selling more web-based systems, we actually do not have any engineers. So I have to go back to recruitment. Whereas with regards to key account managers, I've got about 1% that have got both the skills and the competencies. And this is where the information that we've put into the system, the processes that happen, information like this gets generated to us and allows us really to sit with the information, and that's when we make the decisions. So a talent management system can work with the system, can work with the data, that we've got, to allow us to draw the necessary reports that we need to collate what we've put into the system so that we can start making the right initiative decisions. Say, oh, goodness me, a key account manager is a key position. We've only got 1% of the employees. Let's start seeing if anyone wants to groom into that role. If not, let's start looking at our recruiting initiatives, because in 3 years' time, we're really going to need our key account managers to step up. And we've only got 1% of them that have got skills and competencies. So we can now build our employees with additional skills and competencies that we may never have known they needed to acquire. And there's a lot more that I can show you on this, but I think for now you've sort of got an idea as to how a talent management system sort of differentiates itself from other systems and how it can assist in driving those processes forward. So just in conclusion, if we come back to this, is that we all know what the vision is. It's to grow and enable a workforce that can support the growth of the business, ideally looking at a unified approach to talent management that aligns with the goals of the company and the goals of the employee, or the initiatives of the employee. So to make that happen, we have a strategy, which for us in HR is the talent management strategy. And this could include career development conversations. It could include a realignment of competencies and skills. It could include introducing continuous feedback and redoing our performance process. It could look at redoing our recruitment process. There might be different things that we need to do that will formulate our strategy. And for us, the tools here is our means to not only gather the information required for the strategy, but also to hold that information at place. So the question here is, do we have the right tools in place? If we don't, otherwise we'll get stuck in a holding pattern. So this tool could be, our strategy is to get competencies and skills. How are we going to do that? Is it going to be a third party? Is it going to be ourselves? We need to get buy-in from management. How are we going to do that? So the tool is more the how are we going to do, what are we going to provide? And the execution is generally where a system comes in place. So the execution is, we've got our vision, we know where we want to be, we've got the strategy, we've got our processes in place, we've actually got all the content. Now we just need to put it all together so that we can actually execute it and start pulling up those analytics. And you'll notice that the tool is before the execution. Strategy is before execution. So no system should have to force you to change your strategy. Then it's the wrong system. And that is very important to have, because your strategy is aligned perfectly with where you want to be as an organization. It is something that you've either done on paper, you've looked at what you have, you've looked at the resources that you have, and that's where you're going forward. If you have to change that strategy for a system, start looking for other systems. Your strategy is then constantly going to get changed. So that's the one clear point that I would like to highlight is strategy first, then look for a system that supports the strategy. Once you've got that system that supports the strategy, then the goal becomes inevitable. And it will be obtained. We will have a nice, productive company. We'll become a good employer. We'll have high retention. And it's ultimately where we want to be within the organization. So from my side, I trust that everyone has had a good sort of insight in terms of HR data. I am available at any point in time. Email me. I don't really use Twitter, but the company has a handle. I'm also on LinkedIn. I post quite a lot of information that I learn as I do research, and I find that could be useful and helpful. If you've got any questions, please give me a shout. I see there are 1 or 2 questions, but I think we're sort of running out of time here, so I will answer them individually. If you want to know more about the system and how it can help you, how it can guide you, please, I'm available. Reach out to me. So from my side, thank you very much for everyone that has attended the HR webinar. I will be sending the recording out shortly. And thank you very much for your time, and have a great April further. All the best.